Not every success story begins with a silver spoon. Some begin with scraped knees, cold mornings, and a stack of newspapers under one arm. This is the story of Ethan Walker, a kid who grew up in a broken neighborhood, sold newspapers on street corners, and dared to dream far beyond his zip code. He didn't wear fancy clothes, he didn't go to private school, but he had something no one could take from him: hunger. Not the kind in your stomach, the kind in your soul. And that hunger turned a paperboy into a CEO. Ethan lived in a cramped, run-down apartment in Eastwood, a forgotten part of the city. Peeling paint on the walls, flickering lights, an old heater that barely worked in winter. It was just him and his mom after his dad passed away, when Ethan was 7. His mom worked 2 jobs, waitressing by day, cleaning offices by night. They barely scraped by. At 8 years old, Ethan got his first job, delivering newspapers. Every morning, rain or shine, he'd pull on his hoodie, grab the paper bundle, and hit the streets. Morning news, headlines here. Most people ignored him. Some smiled. Some tossed a coin his way. But day after day, he kept going. Feet tired, hands cold, but spirit unbreakable. At night, he'd sit by the window reading the papers he couldn't sell. Not for the sports scores, not the gossip, but for the business section. Even as a child, he was drawn to the people who made decisions, who built companies, who changed the world. And somewhere between the pages, a fire lit inside him. One day, Ethan sat down on a park bench with a leftover paper. He opened it to find an article titled, "America's Youngest CEOs." He stared at the pictures, men and women in tailored suits, standing in front of glass buildings. They looked like they belonged to a different planet, but Ethan felt something stir inside him. "I want to be one of them," he whispered, not out loud for anyone else to hear, but to himself, to the version of him no one saw. From that day on, he sold newspapers with one hand and held on to his dream with the other. He started listening more carefully. He observed people, how they dressed, how they spoke, what they carried in their briefcases. Every sidewalk was his classroom, every customer, his teacher, every moment a chance to learn. He stopped spending money on snacks. Instead, he bought used books from garage sales. He read about business, leadership, entrepreneurship, words that once felt too big for a kid like him. But the more he read, the smaller those words felt. One frosty December morning, Ethan stood outside a tall office tower downtown. He was selling papers like usual when a man in a trench coat stopped. "You're out here every day," the man said. "What's your name?" "Ethan Walker, sir." "You ever think about doing something more?" Ethan smiled. "Every single day." That man was Mr. Patterson, a regional manager at a logistics company inside that tower. He handed Ethan a business card. "If you're serious, come by this Friday. We might have a spot for you." That Friday, Ethan put on his cleanest shirt, still, wrinkled but worn with pride, and walked into that building. They gave him a part-time role, entry-level, filing documents, stocking the supply room, making coffee. But to Ethan, it was a golden key. Ethan showed up early, left late. He learned the systems, the people, the culture. He paid attention when others didn't, took notes, asked questions, took nothing for granted. While his peers partied, he studied. He took free online courses, read case studies, learned finance, operations, digital strategy. He volunteered for every small project, every grunt task, and little by little people started noticing. One day, Ms. Carter, a senior executive, called him into her office. She had seen his drive, his ideas, his unwillingness to settle. "You ever thought about going corporate, Ethan?" she asked. He nodded. "All my life." She gave him a shot, a junior analyst role. From there, he flew. Ethan worked his way up, step by step. By 25, he was leading teams. By 30, he was directing departments. And by 35, he was appointed CEO of a company with over 2,000 employees. Ethan never forgot where he came from. He kept a framed newspaper on his desk, the same one he sold as a boy, not to brag, but to remember. He changed the culture of his company, created scholarship funds for kids from struggling neighborhoods, launched leadership programs for underprivileged teens, gave chances to those who had none, just like someone once did. For him, he told his team, titles don't make leaders, choices do. Success isn't about climbing over people, it's about lifting others as you rise. And every time someone asked him the secret to his journey, he'd smile and say, I started by delivering the news. Now I'm writing my own headlines. So if you're listening to this and you're struggling, if you feel invisible, overlooked, stuck, remember Ethan Walker, a kid with no fancy shoes, no connections, no backup plan, just heart. The world may not hand you opportunity, but if you show up every day, if you learn, if you fight, you can build your own. Dreams don't care where you started. They care how far you're willing to go. And maybe, just maybe, one day someone will tell your story.